You've got a gun, you've got a big gun, you've got a gun, it's not a real one, and all you ever think about is running away, all you ever think about is trying to stay away from me.
And welcome back to another episode of the LoudMouth MMA podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Steele. Today we have ourselves another installment of the MMA Yesterday series. We have arrived to UFC 16.
Battle in the Bayou.
The music, when this thing, when the pay-per-view starts, it's in the background. It is so obnoxious.
It's better than the card.
Oh my God. Listen, in the background when it first starts, it's like there's like harmonicas that are, I'm like, what is happening right now? Like the music they used to,
It's like a late night sports
we're
desk.
like, guys, we get it. It's in New Orleans, or was it in New Orleans?
I think so.
It was in the Bayou,
In the Bayou,
so I don't
yeah.
know.
Close
Somewhere
enough.
close enough.
At least we're not in Alabama.
Yeah.
Oh, and we're
We've
still
got
going
out.
on Alabama.
But listen, now we're in Louisiana, so let's get real. I mean, we really got to say Louisiana is any better than Alabama?
Don't bring that voodoo on us.
Listen, true dat. True dat. But yeah, the intro music got me going. I was like, all right, this
Get
is
you
going to be a
fired
good
up.
night. This is going to be a good night.
Wrong.
Did you also notice in the pay-per-view that it sounded like something got bleeped?
It
Yes,
did.
we
It
talked
did,
about that,
right at
but
the
we don't
beginning.
know what.
I listened to it like 10 times.
Just Goldie talking, right?
It was just normal talking.
No cuss words.
Did
maybe-
they think that he said fucking? That's the only thing I could guess.
I don't know how they could have misconstrued it because I heard no attempt at a
It
cuss
was
word.
straight up a bleep, though.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
He was at the end of a sentence, and they just bleeped.
The whole context of the rest of the sentence that was unbleeped, though, like there
Wouldn't
was
have
no-
made any sense.
It didn't make, yeah,
No.
nothing, none. I
It
don't
would
know
not
why
have
they
made
did
any
that.
sense.
Maybe
Yeah.
somebody in the crowd just
That's
screamed
literally
out
what I was going to
something.
say. Maybe there was something in the back that we just couldn't hear, and they knew, okay, we can't put that up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe as he was doing the introduction or something.
Yeah.
But don't they pre-record that? That thing is pre-recorded.
Maybe.
Well, that's
Maybe, I
what
don't
I'm
know.
saying. If it is pre-recorded, that's how they would catch it, to bleep it. If somebody had said something.
I meant like pre-recorded, like in a studio.
Oh.
I assumed.
I don't know. These old days.
I
it's
don't
hard-
know.
I
It
don't
looks
know.
like- I don't know.
I have no idea. All I know is it was weird.
It was
and
weird.
I listened to it a couple times. And I was like, "What in the world? Like, what are they bleeping there?" I could not, like, for the life of me, figure it out. All right, so this is officially in New Orleans, Louisiana. Attendance was 4,600. Man, did you guys notice that the crowd was like deafening? Did anyone notice?
I mean, I heard the crowd.
Like
didn't pay
that was
much
the
attention to it.
I pay attention to that on these pay-per-views for some reason. It's
Loud
something I always
4,000
like
people?
catch out. It was a very, very loud 4,600.
Wow.
You know,
Could have just been that the last card was really quiet, and then you go to
maybe
the next one.
because it was in Japan. Everyone's just going
Yeah.
Yes, at the
like
end of the fight.
they all do the anime claps.
Japan is notoriously quiet during fights.
There
I
it is.
enjoy that, though.
I do too.
I like to hear their feet.
This took place March 13th, 1998. This is, of course, following UFC Japan,
This is
Ultimate Japan.
This is the first fight card of '98 for the UFC, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, this is the beginning of '98.
Yeah, March of 98. The Japan was in December of 97.
We're
So
making
yes,
moves, man.
we are.
I was talking to her about this earlier today, and how many weeks or years it's going to take us to catch up to the modern UFCs. We got a good 2.5, 3 years of talking about these old events.
Yeah, we have ourselves a minute here. So the lightweight tourney is introduced here, which these are guys that weigh under 170.
Getting closer to real lightweights.
Yes, and then we have ourselves a light heavyweight bout, which is 200, under 200.
I think so.
So it would be 171 to 200.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we had two light heavyweight fights. Then we had a heavyweight bout, which was super random. But I guess Chemo, for some reason, well, I guess not for some reason, I understand. But Chemo has this like cult following at this point.
Yeah, he definitely was a big draw back in the day. I don't really know why.
Yeah, see, that's where I'm at too. I'm trying to figure out
But-
like exactly what was it? What was it that gave him such a draw? I mean,
Going back and looking at all these old fights and these old fighters from yesteryear that we used to hold with such a high regard, like, you know, we're fans in the modern era of the sport now, and so many of these guys that I used to love, I look back and I'm just like, these guys suck.
so he had, he debuts in the UFC at UFC 3, okay, and he fights Patrick Smith in K1 twice.
Pat Smith, baby.
Both times he submits Pat Smith with punches.
Wow.
And then he also fought a guy named Fred Floyd who doesn't even have a wiki. He then fights again at UFC 8 and loses to Ken Shamrock. So far, he's had 2 UFC fights. He's only lost to the 2 best. Okay, he goes to shoot boxing, gets a submission by arm triangle. He goes to U Japan, gets a submission. Then he fights at Ultimate Open 96, where he gets rid of Paul Varlins. He beats Brian Johnston in the Ultimate Explosion, goes to a draw with Dan Severn in Pride 1. So, I mean, I guess I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, he has the only 2 guys he's lost to up until that point
His strength
were Hoist and Shamrock.
His strength of schedule is pretty good.
Yeah, and then everyone else he's beating. Scott Bigelow is who he beat at U Japan. So he loses here. Which we'll get to that. He does lose on this card, but I thought it was a good fight. I thought that was one of the better fights on the card.
Yeah.
Personally.
Definitely.
One of the better decisions, because there's quite a few decisions. So as far as decisions are concerned.
Wasn't it like everything but 2 fights was a decision this time around?
Listen, let me look, because I don't think you're wrong. Decision. No.
More than 2 finishes? I thought there were only 2.
There were. So we had a finish in 1 of 2 for the semifinals, and then we had a finish for the finals. We had a finish for our light heavyweight bout. Then we had a decision for the heavyweight bout, and then we obviously, holy shit, did we have a finish for the light heavyweight championship?
Is that the Zinoviev and Frank?
That is the
we've talked about that.
I'm going to just call it the finish, because I don't know if I've seen anything in a hot minute.
It's a literal career ender.
Let's get to that.
Check that source.
We're going to start there, guys. Yeah. We're going to start in a weird place. So Frank Shamrock is on this card. He only has the 1 fight because he's currently the champion, right? So he's
spent about a total of 13 seconds in the octagon thus far.
Yes. So he took on Igor, I believe it's
Zinoviev.
Zinoviev?
Yes.
Okay, Igor Zinoviev. So Igor Zinoviev does not have a wiki, which means you're probably correct.
Yeah, I believe this ended his career, and the truly crazy thing about it is that they're friends. He slammed his buddy like that on his head.
I mean, obviously, I highly doubt that Frank was trying to do what he did.
I agree.
I think he was picking him up and trying to slam him on the ground like he's done umpteen times.
Yeah.
But when he did it this time, it caught him, and he winds up breaking his jaw and his collarbone.
Correct.
So he instantly is out. As soon as he hits, he's out.
Yeah.
I mean, he's night-night. He's sleep. 22 seconds in, absolutely brutal.
Probably.
I don't know if I've seen anything like that, man. That was brutal.
It's like top 3 slams for me in MMA history. It's right up there with Fedor Randleman and Rampage Arona. I think that this is like number 3 underneath of those 2 slams.
Okay. Any of those... Both of those UFC or one's Pride?
No, the other 2 are both in Pride, actually.
Both Pride. Okay. Well, see, I want to see some UFC stuff, man.
Well, I can't think of it.
You are wearing your Pride shirt. Are you wearing a Pride hat, too?
It's a Pride and a UFC hat. It's both.
Oh, well, look at you.
It's UFC on the back, Pride on the front.
There you go. Was that a mullet joke?
No, but it should be.
Yeah, sure. But you are wearing a Pride shirt and what looks to be like a Harry Potter necklace?
No, it's a boxing glove.
I thought it was like a Quidditch.
No.
You should just be happy I didn't wear my gold teeth.
Well, it's because it's hard to... I did run into you one time wearing them, and you were trying to talk to me, and I could not understand what you were saying. So that would not play well on the podcast.
Cody made me wear them out the other day, and he was like, I got to get used to you talking like this. I was like, you just don't.
Oh, my goodness. Pretty soon, Matt's going to have his own SoundCloud with a bunch of raps on it. We're waiting for it to happen.
I hope.
All right, so we started with the Frank Shamrock fight. We'll get to the rest of the card. We'll work our way from where it actually started. That was the last fight of the night, but it's the one that we need to talk about because it was...
If we're going to talk
Epic.
about one
he
fight
lifts
on
him up
this
into
card,
the air, slams him onto the ground. Igor is instantaneously knocked out. And the slam is just one of the most brutal things you're ever going to see.
It's
Frank
brutal, but when you watch it at first, though, it almost doesn't look as bad as it really is.
Yeah.
When I first saw it, I was like, what?
Yeah, why is he out?
Why is he out? Like, I'm like,
You
that
watch
wasn't
it again,
that bad
you're
of
like,
a
his
land.
shoulder dug
And then,
into him as he
oh
landed.
my God, I was like,
nasty.
holy crap.
Yeah.
Matt came in when I was watching that, and I was like, oh my God, like, how did that even happen? And then
Matt's
I
like,
watched the replay.
Matt's like, you like that?
Yeah, I
knew.
I let the dog out because I knew what was coming. I was like, I don't
like-
need to see this. I've seen this 1,000 times.
I came real close to doing Bahaman
Yeah.
when you said that. Like, I was about ready to do it, and I was like, "Don't do it. Hold back. Hold back.
don't hold back.
have some dignity. Hold back." All right, let's start at the beginning of this card, shall we? Oh, we got to talk about a couple things. So, is this the first time that Goldie and Joe are at the same time?
I believe so.
Now, Joe is not commentating.
No, they're not together
Okay, they're
yet,
not together,
but they're in the building.
It's the first time that I think they're on a broadcast together.
You know what I noticed about?
Pretty sure.
You know what I noticed during this card? Joe's still got them troll hands all the way back in '98.
Sausage fingers.
He also just sounds like...
Don't at me, Joe.
He sounds like... Every time they kick it over to him, and it's probably what they wanted him to do, but he sounds like he's on like an MTV show.
Yeah, a little bit.
He's like, we're all pumped back here. Everyone's really cool.
We
They're
got
sitting
this-
down. They're all like,
Yeah.
We
they're
got
all
this guy in
Backstage.
from Brazil.
This guy's fresh. This guy's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He sounds like he's on like some MTV show, and
He's
they
like an MC.
they had to have, like, I'm just imagining some old man was in the back going like, now, Joe, when you go out, just make sure that you use the language that the kids are going to love. We got to get them involved. You know, that's how that went. And that's why he talked that way. Cause it sounds super unnatural.
For
That's
sure.
not how he talks, the way that he's talking here. But I did say, I listened to this. I watched the first fight. I didn't watch it, but I listened to the first fight in the car, which I'm really glad because it was not that fun.
It
of a
was
fight,
buns.
So, yeah, so I'm glad that I listened to that
Cheeks.
one. But I will say, when Buffer came on, I was like, Buffer's starting to sound like Buffer now.
Yeah,
bit.
I thought the same
Did you really?
thing. I really did, and it's funny because I thought of you in that moment. I was like, oh, he kind of has a little bit more of
Well,
himself in that.
Goldie still does not sound like Goldie.
No.
No, but he used a
He had-
classic Goldie phrase for the first time in this
yeah.
card. He said, the veteran voice of the Octagon, Bruce Buffer.
There
and
it is.
And my heart beat a little harder.
Did
for
you
a
get?
second.
Did you get a little? You got a catch?
A little bit.
Yeah, a little catch.
I love you, Goldie.
Yeah. First fight of the night, as we just referenced, was Pat Miletich taking on Townsend Saunders. If I have another kid, I'm going to name him Townsend, regardless of gender, because
Too bad I'm taking it.
that's
I'm just kidding.
that Townsend seems like it's multi-gender,
It could be.
right?
Any name
Yeah.
can be multi-gender.
Matthew cannot.
I disagree.
You can name a girl Matt. I'm not saying you can. First of all, you can
You can
literally
do whatever
anything.
you want.
But you're saying that a girl
yes,
named
I
Matthew.
have known so many guys with girls' names and vice versa,
that's
and I
not-
like it.
But that's
I
not the
like
same.
It.
Matthew,
Matthew, though.
Matthew.
I knew-
I'm saying specifically Matthew.
My parents
Yeah.
definitely assumed my gender.
I've heard Kim. I like Kim is both cool with that.
I knew a Kelsey.
We went to school with a girl named Charlie back in the
I
day.
knew-
See, that's normal.
I knew a girl named Joe. I knew a guy named
That's normal.
Kelsey.
Joanne is
I
pretty
knew
normal.
I knew a guy named Ashley.
Ashley's normal. Ashley, that's Ash is the main
She
character
did know a
in Evil
guy.
Dead.
She knew a guy named Kelsey. Okay, that's a weird one.
Kelsey Grammer.
Oh, okay, never mind. Shut up, Matt.
Shut up, Matt. I would feel like Matt might be one of those names that cannot cross gender
Kelsey
lines.
Grammer's my favorite X-Men too. I'm
There
so
you go.
stupid.
There you go. You stupid. Leave the room and shame yourself.
This is the second week in a row I've had to leave.
Pat Miletich, Townsend Saunders, not a fun fight. Split decision. What was cool about this fight, just from a historical reference, I think this is the closest fight we've ever had.
It's up there. Very
Has
competitive.
to be. I would say number one clearly.
Not
to
an
me.
exciting fight.
No,
but
but I
competitive.
think this is our closest fight because even though we had draws, like so, for instance, Ken Shamrock Hoist was our first draw, right?
I think so. Yeah,
Should be.
like UFC 3.
At least one of our first draws. If
Yeah.
it's not the first, it's at least one of the first. In the scoring of UFC 16, it was not a draw.
Yeah.
Ken Shamrock beat Hoist Gracie hands down.
100%.
Right? If in
Because it was-
in UFC 16 scoring.
It was like a Meta Morris draw where they just
It was
ran out of time.
They ran out of time.
It wasn't a draw because they
and
fought
Hoist
a
was on the
competitive close
bottom
fight.
for 30 minutes.
Yeah, he
or
lost
however
that
long it
fight
was.
with modern rules.
36 minutes.
Yeah,
it was a 36-minute fight. I
Crazy.
believe. But yeah. So this fight, even though it wasn't a draw, like we had draws before, the draws existed before these rule changes. This is the closest fight we've had. Also, another historical point. I'm surprised we hadn't mentioned this yet, but this is the first time that a referee other than Big John
Is in the
reffing a main card fight. We've seen alternate bouts being reffed.
They did not give Bruce Buffer the memo, though.
No,
They
because
did
he
not.
called it wrong, and he turns around and is like, "Oh man, I'm sorry, buddy." He's like, "It's okay." You can see him say it in the ring.
Right.
It's really charming.
He didn't think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all the only name he said, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Up to this point. So, but yeah, I mean, so that's we remember we kept waiting for this moment. Like, when is it going to happen?
It happened.
when you have a non-Big John reffing a fight on a main card.
UFC 16.
UFC 16.
Also the first time that Mike and Goldie are working for the promotion together.
Boom.
So milestones.
Guys, we're hitting this stuff, and
We're getting there.
I'm remembering them too.
Yeah.
So like when I start doing like UFC trivia, like I got this shit in the bag now,
I got
guys.
it.
Start giving me
I'm a
trivia.
win.
Give me trivia prior to UFC 16. I'm good to go.
If you find somewhere that does UFC trivia, we should definitely do it.
Seriously,
We could just open up a trivia night somewhere.
and have all 6 people in Dayton show up.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we can't win our own prizes.
Let's move up to Mikey Burnett taking on.
Oh, you're relying on me for this
I'm
one.
pointing at you. I don't know how you did not get the most basic cue in the entire world. Where I go, Mikey Burnett, and he goes, huh?
So-
I'm sorry, what was
remember
that?
Eugenio
oh, okay. This is the Brazilian guy, isn't it?
Tadio?
Tadio, something like that. Tadio.
It doesn't matter because he lost, and they were hyping him up.
Even Rogan was hyping him up in the back.
Bro, he was getting hyped up by everybody.
I don't-
He's fought Hoyler. He's fought, he just fought Henzo.
He needs to,
right? He went to a draw with both of them.
He
Like,
needs to go fight the heavy bag some more.
dude, he was getting hyped.
Dude, can we talk about how sweaty?
And Mikey Burnett, like,
Can we talk about
kinda
how
fucked him
sweaty
up.
he was? He looked
Oh,
like
yeah.
he already fought.
yeah.
I don't know if they poured water all over him, but if that was
Yes.
just like warm up sweat, he way overdid it.
He only fights MMA one more time after that.
Well, then why were they hyping this dude up?
He had a no contest against Henzo. Oh my gosh. Holy shit.
What?
This is amazing. His no contest against Henzo Gracie. Do you want to take a guess why it was a no contest? So the time when this happened was 14 minutes and 45 seconds. So he fought Henzo at Pentagon Combat, and this was right before UFC 16. So take a wild. You guys each get one guess. Matt, guess why it's a no contest.
Knowing Henzo, and man, I don't know. It's probably something. It's probably something illegal.
That's what
I don't know.
he took the words
Maybe
right
like
out of
an
my mouth.
eye
He took
gouge.
it.
Okay,
or-
so you're gonna go eye gouge. Okay, what do you
Shit,
guys
I
say?
don't know. Just something illegal. Anything illegal.
No contest. Fans rioted.
What?
We got to find the video of this.
How
Yeah, I wanna
incredible
see
is
that.
We got to find this.
All right, guys, we will watch this for you and report on it next week. We also were talking last week on Ultimate Japan. We talked about Conan Silvera
Yeah, Conan Silvera.
because it's not Sylvia, it's Silvera. I keep wanting to call him Sylvia.
Yeah.
Silvera, Conan Silvera. He is the head coach at ATT.
Today?
Yes.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Remember, because we were trying to wonder what he's doing now, and I had a buddy who was listening. And they're like, Conan is the head coach at ATT. I'm like, oh,
Wow.
got it.
That's cool. Hey,
Okay.
back to that riot we were just talking about. Where was the riot? No, don't you look at me.
I'm
Like
like, I'm like, I don't know. Was that? Are you setting something up?
no, I'm just curious.
Oh, Pentagon Combat.
No, where was Pentagon Combat?
I have no idea.
It doesn't say what
No.
state or country.
Just says Pentagon Combat.
Okay, I was just curious what.
I'm gonna have to go back and delete out the dead
just
space.
curious
I
where
was
this
trying to
riot
figure out
happened.
what the joke was.
No, there's
I
no
thought he was
joke.
saying like, where was the riot? I'm
just-
thinking like,
I'm just
okay, is
starved
this
for
a Quiet
knowledge.
Wyatt reference. Is it, I couldn't. I was trying to think of what
I'm
it was.
thirsty for knowledge.
No,
bro.
we'll find it, dude. No, we'll find it. Don't
Okay.
you worry. We'll find it.
We gotta.
We'll find it. But anyway, he lost, man. He lost bad. Mikey Burnett. I don't think anyone at that time could have been expected Mikey Burnett to win that. I honestly think because this was a tournament and Mikey Burnett wound up getting injured, I believe, due to a broken finger and was replaced.
Oh yeah, he won this fight and then immediately had to not go on. And Tori was like, "What's wrong?" I was like, "He's probably just tired."
Yeah, it said he broke a finger and couldn't go on. He would have beat Pat Miletich.
Think so?
Oh, I think absolutely.
Maybe.
100% I think he would have.
Pat might have been fresher.
Now, let's see if they fight in the future and Pat Miletich beats the shit out of him. But I think that he would have beat him that night.
Maybe.
I just felt because he took out the toughest guy. He took out a guy that everybody probably thought was going to beat him. You know, and like that's all you need. That's all the confidence you need to move forward to fight, especially a guy like Pat Miletich. Looking how he looked in that first fight, I mean,
He's such a legend
Agreed.
though too. Like he's got the skills. He just doesn't seem to be putting it together yet.
yeah. But anyway, next fight was Pat Miletich, and he was supposed to fight Mikey Burnett, but he wound up fighting Chris Brennan, a guy who he had actually fought before. I remember them referencing it.
Yeah, rematch.
So let me pull it up. he had actually fought him. Okay, he went to a draw with him in Extreme Challenge 9. He then fought him right after that, went to a decision at Extreme Challenge Trials. And then again, now they're fighting. And this time he shoulder chokes him. So he is the welterweight tournament winner. So now they call it welterweight. At the time, they called it lightweight.
Yeah, because it was just anything under heavyweight.
But he
lightweight.
was straight 170. So on Wikipedia, they refer to it as welterweight.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting, again, piece of trivia, because people would say that he's the first welterweight champion or something.
But he's
not really,
not
because
really.
they called it lightweight at the time.
Yeah.
He just so happened to be 170. So it's a little funky. Like, I don't know. Again, these are trivia things. I'm just trying to add these up in my mind. Let's move on up. We had a light heavyweight bout. We had 2 light heavyweight bouts. We've already talked about, of course, the Ken Shamrock fight. We're not going to talk about that again. The other light heavyweight fight on this was Jerry Bolander taking on Kevin Jackson, which to me, this is an incredibly...
this was one of the fights I looked forward to most on the card.
When I saw what was on this card, this was the one I was looking forward to the most. This seems to be the most intriguing matchup. Because, again, Kevin Jackson seems like a guy.
Second time getting caught in an armbar though, but
Second time.
But he did. I thought for a second he may have done like the fake tap, but then in the replay, like I don't think he tapped.
It's
I think
hard to tell. I mean, like his hand goes down, but I mean, there's so much movement going on. I don't know. It didn't look like a.
I mean, that armbar was.
Tap. Get me out.
I
armbar
thought
was
he
in.
tapped. Big John, I think, said he didn't tap. He just stopped it.
Interesting.
His arm was flexing.
Yeah, I mean,
It was not good.
I mean, it's the ref's job to make sure that to save you from yourself, and he's not going to let someone's arm get snapped in half. So, I mean, he stopped it. It's
for now.
It's always an issue. I mean, because sometimes they don't stop it, and people's arms snap in half, and
I mean,
sometimes they do. They stop it too early or
That's
something.
part of the sport. Yeah.
I wish there was some uniformity, and we're already starting to see that. We're already starting to see it.
Yeah.
Where these
Right.
fights are going to start getting stopped.
I feel like the only way you're ever going to have uniformity in a situation like that, though, is to only have one ref ever.
Or to only have one rule set, which is if you don't tap, the fight's not over.
But then you have guys like Mazzagatti or Yamasaki who know the rule set, or they should know the rule set, but for some reason they just fucking space.
Yeah, and they just let people get the shit pound.
Yeah,
I mean,
like-
I don't know.
I don't know what the solution is, but
Anyway,
it's not Yamasaki.
nevertheless, good on Kevin Jackson if he didn't tap and was just going to try to muscle through it.
Well,
But
he still got armbar for the second time in a row.
yeah,
though.
and he was going to get his arm snapped.
He's
in
got to
half.
get that submission defense working.
Well, I mean, I think that might be one of the last times we see him. We see him. No, that's the last time we see him.
Oh, well, there you go. He didn't want to.
He fights one more time. He fights Sam Atkins. Do you guys remember Sam Atkins?
I do, yeah.
From UFC 8. Sam Atkins lost to Don Fry. That's pretty much all he's known for. Losing to Don Fry at UFC 8. And also losing to Tank Abbott at UFC 11.
You should try and get a hold of Kevin Jackson.
I'm interested in the guy, but
I know.
I mean, it's just like he didn't really do anything else. But yeah, that's the last time we see him in the UFC. So I bid you adieu, Kevin Jackson.
We could talk to Bolander.
The second gold medal winner to fight in the UFC.
Yep.
First one was
Mark Schultz.
there you go.
Yeah.
Look at that, baby.
The fox catcher.
All right, the last fight we got to talk about is Chemo taking on
Do we have to talk about this one?
Tsuyoshi
Tsuyoshi
Kosaka.
TK. If I'm not mistaken, that's the guy who gave Fedor his infamous first loss, which wasn't really a loss, but it was a tournament, and he cut Fedor's face open with an elbow, and Fedor couldn't keep fighting because the cut was so bad. And that's the first guy that ever technically beat Fedor.
I think you showed me that
Let's
fight.
I think that's him.
I remember that.
So he beats Chemo. He has a whole slew of stuff before he fights Chemo.
He's a real
He
legend.
fought in rings
Yeah.
for quite some time. Before that, he fought in the Lummox Cup.
He's one of the most legit fighters in the sport at this time.
Then he goes back to rings, fights in UFC a couple more times, back to rings, fights in the UFC, back to rings. I've never heard of rings before.
I have,
Of course you have.
but
Rings, keeps fighting in rings. Man loves rings. Spends his entire career there. One of the Nogueira brothers fought in rings as well.
Rogerio or Rodrigo?
Rosario.
Little Nog.
Fedor beats Fedor TKO doctor stoppage in rings.
There it is.
What is rings? What is this?
That was a tournament fight too.
Rings,
So
King of Kings 2000 Block B. This rings promotion has been out for quite some time. like before this.
That's an old school promotion.
And they do it on. It's on a season. So the year 2000 is the 6th year in the history of Fighting Network rings, a mixed martial arts promotion based in Japan. And then they do everything
Tournament style, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it.
It was cool, man.
Why have I never heard of that?
That was the first time Fedor ever lost.
Randy Couture fought in that. Yeah, I've never heard of this before.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. But yeah, I mean, I don't think this was that bad of a fight. I thought it was a perfectly fine fight. It was a
okay.
decision.
It was all right. It
was
wasn't
another
great,
decision.
but
I mean, are we becoming just bleed fans right now? We just want to see finishes.
no, not necessarily.
You like how I like how she's trying to defend it, and then he screws
Well, I
it
don't.
over
I
for
like
you?
a competitive fight, but I mean, interesting too. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm with Chael. You can't wrap your legs around another man's head and call yourself a winner.
which is how he wins. All right, let's look ahead to UFC 17.
I'm just kidding, by the way, guys. I love grappling.
So UFC 16 was Battle in the Bayou, of course. UFC 17 is called Redemption. Let's see if we can figure out why it is called Redemption.
I'm pretty sure there's like 9 UFC redemptions.
Yeah. The middleweight tournament semifinals is Carlos Newton
Versus who?
Bob Gilstrap.
Oh, man. Okay, never mind.
We have Alan Goes against Dan Henderson.
Oh, shit.
oh shit, some
have-
Hendo.
We have Chuck Liddell
Oh, my goodness.
versus Noah Hernandez.
Guys, we're getting there.
We're getting there. I'm getting
Mark
excited.
Coleman is back on this
Oh, my
card.
goodness.
Oh, here we
The
go.
hammer.
Tank Abbott is back.
Eh.
We got Frank Shamrock again. Why did they let Tank Abbott commentate during that chemo
what
fight?
was that?
Why did
it
they
was
do that?
awful.
Why did they do
It was
that?
so bad, and I'm sorry, you're gonna have to forgive me. I don't know the other guy's name, but when he was
It
talking
doesn't
about the
matter.
pit bull,
Oh, you're talking about Blatnick?
yeah, and then he was
They
like,
kept-
"Well, the pit bull is usually the smaller fighter." I just was like,
It just
okay.
what annoyed me is they were doing what they did with Jim Brown, where remember in UFC 1
Oh, where they were, like,
they kept making
pandering?
football analogies.
Yeah.
They kept trying to be like, now Tank, it's like Blatnick. They do that news thing. Now Tank, you know, when a man's on top of you, is it hard to move? And Tank would be like, yes.
no,
It
that's
was
pretty easy.
so weird.
Full body on me. I mean, I just stand
hated
right
it.
up.
Oh,
I
man.
hated it. I love Tank in this.
Yeah.
I think it's hilarious because
Oh,
I think
it's
he's so
very
goofy.
entertaining.
He's
It's
horrible
honestly
on
one of the
mic.
highlights of the card for me.
But I was like, why would they do this? Why did they think it was a good idea to have Tank
It's
sit
not
down
the
and
first
do it?
time either.
No, it's not. And he did not get along with that other dude.
And he didn't do a good job then either. They were like, yeah, you did fine. Come back.
Yeah, it's so bizarre.
We think you
Shit.
did
He was
good the
making
first
like
time. You
fart
should do it
jokes
again.
the first time.
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally.
Keeping it classy.
So if you guys didn't get intrigued to come back to UFC 17, I don't know how we can intrigue.
If you're not interested in Chuck Liddell's
guys,
first UFC
Chuck
performance,
Liddell, Dan
Oh my
Henderson,
God.
lose my number.
Carlos Newton. This is like
We're getting there.
getting there,
It's gonna
guys.
be an
Oh,
exciting
man.
card
Let's
to
do
watch.
it. So come back next week. Tori will be back again. Matt will be back again. I will be back again. You've been listening to LoudMouth MMA podcast.
See you, dudes.
Bye.
How this goes, I can't see